Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. The Eclipse of Islam. What Happened to Islam After Umar. By Ghulam Ahmad Parwez. Dedicated to late Maqbul M. Farhat, former coordinator, Bazam Tolu-e-Islam, London. Part 4. The present Quran is mutilated. Have you noticed how the concept of a Muhaddis was twisted? When salvation was made dependent on the allegiance to a God-appointed Imam, the result was that the Quran lost its significance and there was no importance of the finality of prophethood. However, the matter did not end there. Along with this, such beliefs were popularized that ended the protection and permanence of the Quran. About a number of verses, Kitabul Hujjat of al-Kafi says that they were not revealed in this way. Some examples. About Laqad Ahadna, Imam Jafar Sadiq said that these words were about Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan, Hussein and Imams from their lineage. Adam forgot this, and by God this verse was revealed in this way to Muhammad. Opening parenthesis. Ash-Shafi, p. 513. In the Quran this verse is like this. And certainly we gave a commandment to Adam before, but he forgot. 20. 115. According to another tradition, Imam Jafar said that verse 67/29 was revealed with this addition. Shortly you will know who is in error. O the group of liars! I inform you about the wilayah of Ali, after me. Now who is in open disbelief. Ash-Shafi, p. 512. In the Quran, this verse is like this. So you shall come to know who it is that is in clear error. 67:29. Another tradition. About verse 70:12, Imam Jafar said that this verse was revealed like this. When somebody asked about the punishment to disbelievers in the wilayah of Ali, and there was no one to salvage them, Imam said that this verse was revealed with the wilayah of Ali. Ash-Shafi, p. 518. This verse is like this in the Quran. A questioner asked about the penalty to befall the unbelievers, which none can repel. 70:1-2. Now the question arises. How were these words revealed but deleted from the Quran? Imam Muhammad Baqir said that Jibril, Archangel Gabriel, used to come to the Prophet with these complete verses, but people usurped their right, the right of Muhammad's descendants, and changed the message. Hence we sent punishment from heaven upon those who had usurped the right of Muhammad's descendants. These people were sinful. Ash-Shafi, p. 520. The verse in the Quran is, but the transgressors changed the word from that which had been given them. So, we sent on the transgressors a plague from heaven, for that they infringe our command. Repeatedly. 2:59. The uniqueness and fundamental importance of the Quran is that it is the last book of God which is complete and immutable. Not a single word or letter can be added or subtracted or changed because God has taken responsibility for its preservation. We have, without doubt, sent down the message. And we will assuredly guard it from corruption. 15:9. It will shake our very belief if there is any doubt about the authenticity of any word of the Quran. It will become just like the mutilated versions of the revealed books of the earlier prophets, Torah and the Bible. There are numerous such examples in al-Kafi as we mentioned above, according to which the concept of preservation and perpetuality of the Quran is negated. The hidden, concealed meanings of Quran. Now let us talk about those verses about which it is said that they are not changed but they are explained or translated in such a way that we do not find their authentication from the Quran. About their meanings, Imam Muhammad Baqir said that whatever was revealed about Ali, people committed kufr by disbelieving it. Ash-Shafi, Volume 1, p. 513. Another tradition says that the Quran has been changed. According to their belief, Imams acquired knowledge direct from God. This is called ta'wil. We discussed earlier about ta'wil and the hidden meanings of Quran within the context of Ismaili beliefs. For example, about the meaning of Nabar el-Azim in verse 78. 1-2, Imam Jafar Sadiq said that Nabar el-Azim means wilayah. It was asked if it meant wilayah of God. The Imam said it meant wilayah of Amir al-Mu'minin, Ali. Ash-Shafi, Volume 1 p. 514. Similarly, about verse 10. 105. And that you should keep your course towards the religion uprightly. And you should not be of the polytheists. Imam Muhammad Baqir said it means wilayah. Revealed treatises other than the Quran. The issue is not confined to the ta'wil in the meaning of the Quran, but it goes further, as one can see in the following two traditions of the 39th chapter. Kitab al-Hujjat of al-Kafi. Abu Basiri relates that he went to Imam Jafar Sadiq and said he wanted to ask a question in total privacy. The Imam raised the curtain that separated his room from the rest of the house and said, "Now you can ask whatever you want." I asked, "Your Shias say that the Prophet taught one chapter of knowledge to Ali from whom 1,000 chapters were opened to him." The Imam said, "Abu Muhammad, alias of Abu Basir. The Prophet taught 1,000 chapters to Ali, and from each chapter another 1,000 chapters were opened to him." I said, "By God, this is called knowledge." The Imam paused for a while and then said, "Abu Muhammad, we have Jami." I asked, "Imam, tell me what is Jami?" He said, "It is a revealed book which is 70 times longer than the hand of the Prophet, who dictated this himself, and Ali wrote in his own handwriting. This contains everything which is allowed and forbidden, and everything that we may need, even about the compensation of a small scratch on body is mentioned in that." Then he put his hand on me, snapped his fingers and said, "Even compensation of this small matter is mentioned." He said this is in a strong voice. I said, "This is real knowledge." The Imam said, "It does not end here." After a little pause, the Imam said, "We also have Jafar. But people don't know." I asked him what Jafar was. He said, "This is a pot from the time of Adam which contains the knowledge of all prophets and Osius, testators, and all the learned persons who appeared in Bani Israel." I said, "This is knowledge." He said, "It does not end here." And, after a brief pause, said, "We have the Mashaf. Treatise of Fatima." People don't know what is the Treatise of Fatima. I asked what that is. This treatise is 3 times voluminous than the Quran. In your Quran there is only one letter that is apparent. Meaning. I said, "By God, this is knowledge." He said that it does not end here. After a pause he said, "We have the knowledge of ma kana wa ma yakan, i.e., what will happen till the day of judgment." I said, "This is knowledge." He said, "There is more." I asked, "What is that?" He said, "We know all about what incidents will occur day and night, and sequence of events, and what will happen till the day of judgment." The narrator says that he heard Imam Jafar as say, in 128 AH. During the reign of Bani Abbas, philosophers will appear, who will be disbelievers in Islam and unity of God. I saw this in the Treatise of Fatima. I asked him what the Treatise of Fatima was. He said, "When the Prophet passed away, Fatima was in deep grief. God sent an angel to console her, who talked to her. Fatima informed Amir al-Mu'minin, Ali, about the angel. He said, when the angel comes to you next time and you hear its voice, tell me." When the angel came, Fatima alerted the Amir al-Mu'minin, who wrote down all what the angel said. All that was written down in the treatise. Mashaf. Then Imam said that not only about the heaven and hell but all the events up to the day of judgment are written in the Mashaf. Ash-Shafi, Volume 1 p. 270-72. Up to this point, there is no mention of allowed and forbidden as pointed out by Ash-Shafi. However, after 2-3 traditions, it is said. A narrator says, I heard Imam Jafar Sadiq saying, we possess something because of which we are not dependent on people but people are dependent on us. We have a book that was dictated by the Prophet and scribed by Ali. This book enlists what is halal, allowed, and what is haram, forbidden. We know everything that you are going to start and when you complete or end that. Ash-Shafi, Volume 1 p. 273-74. All these commands were brought by the angels who descended at the command of God. How angels came to the houses of Imam. It is narrated by Abu Hamza Thamali that he went to see Ali ben al-Hussein. For a while I waited outside, then I went inside the house. I saw that the Imam was picking something and giving to someone behind the curtain. I asked him, what you are picking? He said, they are small parts of the feathers of angels. When they leave, we collect them and make ta'weez, amulets, for kids. I asked him, do the angels visit you? He said, yes, they come as soon as I go to bed. Ash-Shafi, Volume 1 p. 407. What is the relationship of Iranianism with these beliefs? Remember, we began with the dialogue between Umar and Hermazan. The latter had said, we were defeated by the Arabs because you have the Book of Allah. We, or any other nation, cannot overcome you as long as you have this book. Quote. Later on, we saw how Quran was made to disappear from the practice of Ummah. Now the question arises that all the beliefs and ideas we mentioned in the previous pages are attributed to the Imams who were all Arabs. Then how did Iranianism come into it? These beliefs and ideas are of one Muslim sect, the Shias, and not those of the majority of Muslims. Sunnis. Did the Quran disappear from their practice too, and if so, how did it happen? These questions are very important and require thorough study and deep understanding. I would like to emphasize again that I am neither Sunni nor Shia. I do not belong to any sect. I am a student of the Quran. My belief, rather my conviction, is that this great book of God is the only authority in Deen and the standard or measure to judge truth and falsehood, right and wrong. In my view, any belief, any idea of any sect or school of thought that goes against this is not genuine, even though it is attributed to our respected elders of any sect. In this respect, my stance is that I see any such attribution as malicious and say that those elders would not have said that. The ideas and beliefs about which we referred to in the preceding pages were all attributed to the Shia Imams. However, we do not have any book about which we can definitely say that this was written by them. All sayings of these people, Imams, are conveyed to us through the compilers of traditions. Compilers of hadith were all Iranians. As I wrote earlier, Khalini is considered as the most authentic among the Shia compilers of hadith. He was born in Ray, the present Tehran, in 250 AH. He died in 329 AH. The 11th Imam of Imamiyya Shias, Hassan Askari, died in 260 AH. After him, the 12th Imam Muhammad al-Muntazar, who was about 4 or 5 years old, disappeared near Baghdad, in a cave near Samarra. Dr. Zahid Ali, p.155. It is clear from this discussion that Khalini did not get all his traditions directly from any Imam but from other narrators. The 3 other Shia books of hadith were compiled after this. These books are La Yazarok al-Faqih. Sheikh Muhammad Aban Ali, died in 381 AH. And Tahzib wa Istabzar. Abu Jafar Muhammad ben Hassan, died in 460 AH. Weak traditions of al-Kafi. About al-Kafi, it is written in the introduction of Ash-Shafi, Volume 1. Out of the 16,199 of al-Kafi's ahadith, only 5,072 can be relied on. Out of the rest, 144 are most reliable, 1,116 authentic, 302 strong and 9,450 are weak. p. 6. Maulana Syed Zafar Hassan also wrote in Farokh-e-Kafi's translation. The Shia sect has never claimed about their hadith books that all their traditions are authentic. Presence of a tradition in a book does not mean that it is considered correct unless it is judged on the measure, standard of tradition. p. 5. In my view, that standard of hadith is that any hadith which goes against the teachings, commands of the Quran is not authentic. On the basis of this argument, I dare say that whatever is written in the previous pages about the beliefs and ideas which are attributed to the Imams is not correctly attributed. They should be considered in accordance with the above remarks of Syed Zafar Hassan. These traditions should be considered as weak. However, Shias consider them authentic and I have no right to give any judgment on them. Anyhow, I have to be careful because the Shias are blaming me of the heresy of the rejection of hadith. I am accused of the rejection of hadith. In the introduction of Ash-Shafi, Volume 1, Allama Muhammad Hassan writes, "It is regrettable that among Muslims a group is always present which not only rejects the usefulness of hadith but says, it is better that this meaningless literature is drowned in pure wine. This is a useless literature which should be destroyed. The foundation of this fitna, mischief, was laid down during the last moments of the Prophet's life when he asked for a pen and ink and it was said that the Book of God was enough. And those people were lashed during the Khilafat of the believer in the Book of God is enough for us. Meaning Hazrat Umar, who talked about this incident. Al-Faruq by Shibli Nomani. This misguided concept, while passing through different Islamic periods, reached its climax in the period of Maulvi Chakravarti and Mr. Parwez. When this idea had appeared in public with its real colors and contours, the believers in the Book of God is enough for us are also making noise. Many books have been written to denounce this idea but it proved unproductive. Introduction, Ash-Shafi, Volume 1, p. 3. My rejection of hadith is confined to only those hadith which are against the teachings of the Quran. Their attribution to the Prophet or our respected elders is wrong. They cannot say anything that is against the Quran. I never said. The traditions which are not against the teachings of the Quran, I recognize them as authentic. I consider it an honor that for the crime of saying, the Book of God is enough for us. I am small but I am associated with great people. Although I am very small in comparison to Umar, I am proud that I have an ideological relation with such a great companion of the Prophet. Ajami impact on the Sunni beliefs and schools of thoughts. Now we will discuss the other question, i.e., how the Iranian conspiracy affected Sunni beliefs and ideas. It may be recalled that the central point of the Ajami conspiracy was to end the importance and greatness of the Quran. In this connection they first floated the idea that the Prophet did not leave the Quran with the Ummah in a compiled form. He left it in scattered pieces. There are strong traditions about the compilation of the Quran. We will detail these traditions later. At this point it is enough to understand that there are 6 compilations of hadith which Sunnis consider as most authentic books after the Quran. About the compilation of the Quran, these traditions say. Imam Ibn Abi Dawud quotes Sa'id bin Thabit as saying that in the year when Yamama people were killed, Abu Bakr sent someone to call me. Umar was also present. Abu Bakr told me, Umar says that many Qurra people who had learned the Quran by heart have been killed. I fear that if the blood of more Qaris is shed, then the Quran may be lost. In my opinion, the Quran should be collected. I told Umar, how can we do something that was not done by the Prophet? Umar said that by God this is a very good thing. Umar insisted on that until God guided me like him, and I also supported his idea. Abu Bakr further told me, you are a young intelligent person who had been writing the revelations for the Prophet. We do not consider you a person who tells a lie and attributes it to somebody. Hence, you should write the Quran. This assignment was more difficult for me than moving a mountain. I asked both of them, why do you want to do this collection, which the Prophet had not done? Abu Bakr and Umar said that by God this is a very good job. They both insisted on that till God guided, and I agreed with their idea. Hence, I began to search the Quran on the pieces of papers, leaves of dates, stones and the Hufaz memorizers of the Quran till I found that a verse was missing that I had heard the Prophet reciting. Now hath come unto you a messenger from amongst yourselves. 9. 128. I searched this verse and found it with Kazema ben Thabit. I added it to its chapter. Muqam Hadith p.276. The traditions say that 1. The Quran was collected by Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq and revised by Hazrat Zaid. 2. It was collected by Hazrat Umar. 3. Not even Hazrat Umar but by Hazrat Osman as mentioned in the 4th chapter titled Hasbuna Kitaballah. According to these traditions, certain verses were not collected, and after research it was discovered that those verses were eaten by the goat of Hazrat Aisha. About the verse of Rajam, stoning to death, Hazrat Umar insisted that in the lifetime of the Prophet it was part of the Quran. During his Khilafah, when he was told to include this verse of the Quran, Umar said that he will not include them in the Quran, but the command in this verse will be implemented. Consequently, punishment for adulterers was stoning in accordance with this verse. The Quran compiled by Abu Bakr or Umar was with Hazrat Hafsa. In his reign, Marwan burnt this compilation. Other traditions say that it fell down in a well. Whatever is the case, the Ummah was deprived of this copy or copies of the Quran. About the compiled copy of Hazrat Osman, Imam Ibn Abi Dawud, in his book Kitab al-Masahif, writes, after collection was completed, Hazrat Osman saw it and said, you have done a great job. However, I can see some mistakes, but don't worry, the Arabs will correct them. Through the dialects, linguistic habit. After that, during the reign of Bani Umayyah, Hajjaj ben Yusuf made changes at 11 places in the Quran of Hazrat Osman. About the Quran that we now have, it is said that this was corrected by Hajjaj. Moreover, many companions of the Prophet had copies of the Quran which differed from the copy of Hazrat Osman at many places. These are all the traditions of the Sunnis about Quran. You can well imagine if such ideas are spread about the compilation of the Quran, how can it maintain its commanding position? We will detail later how and when these ideas were spread and what is the role of Iranians in this. The concept of abrogation of verses. In short, the Quran, in whatever way it was collected as these traditions say, was handed over to the Ummah. Now it was said that it contains many verses which had been abrogated. It means that there are many verses which are recited but their command is abrogated or not effective. There is another belief in this connection, that certain verses supersede other verses. Another belief is that certain verses have been cancelled in view of some hadith. We will discuss the second belief later. As far as the first belief is concerned, it is left to the judgment of Allamas, religious scholars, to declare any verse cancelled or abrogated. This attitude became so common that about 500 There are total 6,236 verses in the Quran. Verses were considered abrogated. The count of the abrogated verses was different in different times, until Shah Waliullah limited them to 5. Irrespective of the number, 500 or 50, the fact remains that there is a belief that certain Quranic verses are recited but their command is not effective. In accordance with the decision of a religious scholar, Allama, and not God. Now the question arises that how the Quran which escaped cancellation should be understood. At this point, the role of Iranians became very clear. We have seen that according to the belief of Muhaddis, there are two kinds of revelations. One comes to the Prophet and the other to the Imams. The only difference was in the mode of revelation, but there was no doubt that both were revelations. This was the Shia belief, while in Sunnis the belief was introduced that there were two kinds of revelations which were both conveyed to the prophets. One was called Wahi Jili, or Wahi Matlu, and the other was called Wahi Kafi, or Wahi Ghair Matlu. Wahi Jili is the Quran and Wahi Matlu is the traditions of the Prophet. The belief in the two kinds of revelation prevailed among Jews. One was called Shaktab, Wahi Matlu, and the other one Shab Alpha, Wahi Ghair Matlu. We, the Muslims, acquired this belief from them. Just like the Quran, the belief was formulated about Wahi Ghair Matlu that this is just like the Quran. Hence, it is narrated from Maqdad ben Mahdi Ka'b. The Prophet said, I am given the book, the Quran, and with it another just like it. Another book like Quran. Shortly one man will appear, who will say, follow that Quran too. Whatever is halal, allowed, in that consider halal, and whatever is haram, forbidden, in that consider haram. Abu Bakr Khatib Baghdadi, Kitab al-Kifaya. Just like it are the traditions. It is said that the belief in the Wahi Matlu and Wahi Ghair Matlu was formulated by Imam Shafi'i. He was born in Asqalan province in 150 AH. During the reign of Harun al-Rashid he was living in Yemen, which was a Shia center. He was accused of being a Shia, and that is why he was called to the court of Harun Rashid. He often used to travel to Iraq. In 204 AH he died in Egypt. Tariq-e-Fiqh Islami by Allama Khizri, p.347. It does not matter who developed this idea, but the fact is that according to this belief another treatise of revelations, outside the Quran came into existence which is called Hadith. People who had a clear picture of Deen and believed in the greatness and uniqueness of the Quran opposed this belief and argued that authority in Deen is only the Quran. These people were labeled Mu'tazila. So much intensive propaganda was launched against them that even today if anybody talks about reason and wisdom and his argument cannot be refuted, then it is enough to say that he is a Mu'tazila and he will be automatically considered a non-believer. The story of the struggle between Mu'tazila and Shafi'i is very long and we will not go into details of that. It is suffice to say that the idea of Imam Shafi'i became a pillar of Islam. Read carefully about the status that the traditions got because of this belief. The status of tradition. Hadith. In his book Jamaat-e-Islami ka Nazariya-e-Hadith, Jamaat-e-Islami's concept of Hadith. Maulana Muhammad Ismail, former president of Jamiat-e-Ala Hadith, writes, after research and authentication the Hadith has got the same status as that of the Quran. As a matter of fact, the rejection of Hadith has the same impact on faith and Deen that the rejection of the Quran has. Rejection of those Hadith which are considered authentic according to the criteria of the judgment of Hadith and the Imams of Sunnah. Prophetic model is kufr, disbelief, and excludes such persons from the fold of the Millah. The fraternity of Islam, Jibril, Gabriel, used to bring down the Quran and Sunnah both. He used to teach the Prophet's Sunnah like the Quran. That is why we do not believe in differentiating between the two revelations. Up to this point, the Quran and Hadith are being equated, but Imam Ozai says that the Quran needs Hadith for explanation, while Hadith does not need the Quran. Muqtazar Jami Bayan al-Ilm, p.223. Another Imam of Hadith, Yahya ibn Kathir writes, Hadith can give judgment on the Quran, but the Quran cannot give judgment on Hadith. There is also another belief regarding Hadith, i.e., Hadith can abrogate a command of the Quran. In the booklet Fitna-e-Inkar-e Hades, Percy of the Rejection of Hadith, Allama Hafiz Muhammad Ayub writes, it is not necessary for the saying of the Prophet to be enforced only if it is in accordance with Quran, and to be not valid if it is not in accordance with the Quran. The proof of this argument is given in the Quran, which says, it is prescribed, when death approaches any of you, if you leave behind any goods, that you make a bequest to parents and next of kin. 2. 180. The Prophet said that a will was not needed for heirs. This tradition is being implemented continuously. This means that it is not legitimate to leave a will for heirs. This tradition has cancelled the Quran, and the saying of the Prophet was implemented against the command of this Quranic verse. p. 85. This is the status of traditions given to them in comparison to the Quran. Now the question is how and when these beliefs came into existence. In Chapter IV, God's Book is Enough for Us, we discussed in detail that the Prophet did not compile and leave behind any book of his sayings. Traditions were not collected during the reign of the first four caliphs. Rather, they strictly opposed this idea. After that, we do not find any collections during the period of companions of the Prophet and Bani Umayyah. They were compiled during the reign of Bani Abbas. Shias recognize only those traditions which are narrated by their imams. For them, traditions of Sunnis are not acceptable. The Sunnis believe that any tradition that is narrated by Shias is not acceptable. For Ahl Hadith, anyone who rejects any tradition of Bukhari and Muslim is a kafir. Hanafis do not recognize 200 traditions of Bukhari and Muslim. Imam Bukhari, who is considered as the most authentic collector of traditions, collected 600,000 traditions but accepted only 6,000 or 7,000 and rejected the rest. Other collectors did the same. All collectors of traditions, ahadith, were Iranians. The Sunnis accept 6 of these books as the most authentic. You will be astonished to know that, like the Shia books of traditions, the collectors of these traditions were all Iranians. This chart shows 1. Name of the Hadith collector. 2. Number of traditions collected. 3. Number accepted as genuine traditions. 1. Imam Muhammad Ismail Bukhari. Collected 600,000. Accepted 2,762. D. 256 or 260 AH resident of Bukhara. 2. Imam Muslim ben Hajjaj. Collected 300,000. Accepted 4,348. D. 261 AH resident of Nishapur. 3. Imam Abu Musa Muhammad Tirmizi. Collected 300,000. Accepted 3,115. D. 279 AH resident of Tirmiz. 4. Imam Abu Dawud. Collected 500,000. Accepted 4,800. D. 275 AH resident of Sistan. 5. Abu Abdullah ibn Majah. Collected 400,000. Accepted 4,000. D. 273 AH resident of Qazwin. 6. Imam Abdul Rahman Asai. Opening parenthesis. Collected 200,000. Accepted. 4321. D. 303 AH resident of Nissa village in Khorasan province. After deleting duplication of traditions. Just think over it, not a single collector of the traditions is Arab but all Iranians, who had no written material to rely on. All traditions are based on verbal statements or narrations. These traditions were collected about 200 and 250 a year after the death of the Prophet without any written record but only on verbal statements. According to his own statement, he collected 600,000 but decided to retain 2,700 and 2,800 in his collection and rejected the rest. Those traditions listed in his books are considered equal to the Quran and can even cancel or supersede the Quranic commands. Their rejection is kufr. At this point, we will not go into details about the type of traditions found in these collections. However, hereunder are some examples of traditions collected during the reign of Abbasis. Love of Abbasis. The Prophet said, "No one will be considered a believer unless that person loves Abbas and his descendants." To G. al-Nasr, page 17. Also in Jami al-Bayan. Ibn Kathir has also recorded this tradition. Part 25, Commentary on Surah Shura, page 13. Obviously, the motive behind such traditions was political. Numerous such traditions are present in these books which say, "The Prophet said, you should love God because of his blessings on you, love me because of the love of God and love my Ahl Bayt because of my love." Tirmizi, quoted from Ibn Kathir, Surah Shura. Another example. The Quran says, "Say, no reward do I ask of you for this except the love of those near of kin." 42:33. In explaining this verse, Ibn Abbas said, "The Prophet had blood relations with all the Quraysh. God pronounced through him that he did not want any reward for the preaching of Quran but accord me only the treatment of a relative." After this, Imam Tirmizi quoted this saying of Sa'id ben Jabbar. In this verse Qurba means the descendants of Muhammad peace be upon him. It means that he did not want any reward for his preaching but only the love of his descendants. All sides are included in this. Companions of the Prophet became apostates. Ibn Abbas relates this sermon of the Prophet. "You will be resurrected barefoot, naked and without circumcision." Then the Prophet said, "When some people from my ummah will be taken by the angels towards hell, I will say, O my God, these people are my companions. A voice will come from God, you don't know what they did after you. In response I will say, I was a witness of them while I dwelt among them, and when thou tookest me thou was the watcher over them. Thou art witness over all things." 5:117. God will say, Muhammad, "These people became disbelievers after you." Bukhari, Kitab al-Tafsir. Earlier, we mentioned a Shia tradition that said that only 3 or 5 individuals remained Muslim after the death of the Prophet. That was a Shia tradition and this is a Sunni tradition in Bukhari. What has been written above about the compilation of the Quran is all found in these books of traditions. And the traditions that say that after the death of the Prophet all his companions became unbelievers, are also found in these books. Mind it, that all these books are not of Shias but of Sunnis and authentic to the extent that, according to their belief, rejection of any tradition will excommunicate a Muslim from the fold of Islam. Imam Ibn Jarir Tabari. Now, it was not difficult to raise a new edifice of Islam on the basis of the books of traditions. This job was done by a Sunni Imam, Muhammad Jarir ibn Jabri. The word Imam has a special meaning for Shias but Sunnis call their scholars Imam, such as Imam Bukhari, Imam Tabari and Imam Abu Hanifa. About Imam Tabari, Allama Tamanna Ahmadi says, Ibn Jarir was a native of Amal in Tabaristan. He was born and raised there. After completing his education he left home and searched knowledge for 44 years. He was Shia but called himself Sunni because of taqiyya. His grandfather's real name was Rustam, but was named Yazid after embracing Islam. He used to write his name as Muhammad ben Jarrah ben Rustam on the books which he wrote specially for Shias. While for his books for the non-Shia Muslims he used to write his name as Muhammad ben Jarrah ben Yazid. Shias do not accept that he was Shia. He was born in 224 AH and died in 311 AH. Imam Tabri wrote a 30-volume commentary on the Quran in which he relevant traditions under every verse. This method meant that this commentary was not written by Imam Tabri but it is from the Prophet himself. What is the result of this methodology? Now only that explanation of Quran is considered authentic that is written by Imam Tabri. It is very obvious that when it is said that the Prophet has explained a verse, no Muslim will dare challenge that meaning or say that he has a better understanding of this verse. No Muslim will have the courage to challenge the commentary of Tabri while at the same time no Muslim would tolerate that challenge. Consequently, the explanation of the Quran has been confined to Tafsir-e-Tabri and all doors of critical analysis have been closed. Therefore all the commentaries, interpretations, of the Quran written after Tabri duplicate the same pattern and whoever dares to challenge this is declared rejecter of traditions, and of prophethood and an unbeliever. Imagine, just one action confined the Quran the beliefs and ideas which were written in the books that were compiled by the Imams. Imam Tabri's history. Another way to portray Islam at the time of the Prophet and his companions was to write an authentic history of that period. But Imam Tabri blocked this path by writing a 13-volume book of history, which is considered as the most authentic history by the Sunnis. Tabri's explanation is called the Mother of Explanations and his history is called the Mother of History. All history books written subsequently are based on Tabri's work, in which he adopted this method. To support his explanation of the Quranic verses, he listed all events of the time of the Prophet and his companions. On the other hand, to support or authenticate the events of this period, he listed traditions in his explanation. In this way, Tafsir-e-Tabri and Tariq-e-Tabri became the most authentic books for the era of the Prophet and his companions. And the Islam based on these books moved forward. Tolui Islam Trust 25B, Gulberg 2, Lahore, Pakistan. Tolui Islam@gmail.com